Yeah, hello. Yeah, please welcome to the State of the University address. My name is Eric Wilmot. I'm a visiting professor at the Department of Mathematics and Statistics. Let me start by saying that I'm highly honored to be given the opportunity to introduce the President on this important occasion. My first encounter with the President was during my doctoral study at the Michigan State University from 2002 to 2007. There, I encountered her in 3 different capacities. First, as the Director of the Division of Science and Mathematics Education, and second, as a teacher, because I sat in her class and learned from her. And lastly, as a co-chair of my dissertation committee. And I want to say that without her, perhaps I would not be standing here. During this period, I found her to be very open-minded, an extremely open-minded person who challenges everybody he came across to bring out their fullest capacity and shows interest in the needs of the underrepresented groups in any situation she found herself. And I'll give you an example. I'm not sure she was even conscious of it. We started a class, and in the second week, she asks me, Eric, do you realize you are wearing so many hats in this class? And I was like, yes. And she was like, how so? And I remember vividly that, number one, I was the only black in the class. Apart from being the only black, I was the only African in the class. 3 departments have converged. The Department of Counseling, Educational Psychology, and Special Education, the Department of Mathematics, and the Department of Teacher Education. Students from those classes, the maths heads from those groups, had converged. And I happened to be the only one from my department, then Teacher Education Department. So I knew that in all of these cases, I had not only my country on my shoulders, Africa on my shoulders, the entire black community in the world on my shoulders, and my department on my shoulders. But little did I know that she was playing a little bit of psychology on me. Later on, I realized that, yeah, this is how this woman is. Because before I was aware, I had decided to impress her and to do my best to represent all the communities that I was representing. My choice of her as the chair of my dissertation committee stemmed from how genuine I found her. She was such a very genuine person, willing to share everything that she had with anybody, willing to understudy, willing to take risks, pushing you to be very innovative, just as he was. Therefore, you could see, during her period, I have not been to MSU for long after that. She was able to bring the science and mathematics education community together into one unit to form a strong research group that understudied teaching and learning at the place. I believe that MSU made a name in that regard, so far as research was concerned. I would later follow her and was excited to realize when she left for the National Science Foundation that these same qualities, the forward-thinking leadership quality, the commitment to collaboration, and the commitment to shared achievement. She is somebody who will not want to be praised for whatever she did, but want to be hidden as part of a group. So when I realized that she was pushing an agenda at NSF for scientific education, I was like, yeah, that's the professor I know. And I want to believe, after reading about her achievement just 1 year after entering this place, that it is these same activities that got her to initiate the strategic plan for research and development for the University of Maine system and guide UMaine and UMaine Machias through the strategic vision and values and process that has resulted in the strategic plan. I am hopeful that in the State of Union, in the university address, we will be given the opportunity to take an account and celebrate achievements from the past year. I am also hopeful that we shall be exposed to the challenges that the University of Maine and the University of Maine Machias are facing, as well as the agenda for the year ahead. Senior administrators of the University of Maine system, members of the Board of Trustees of UMaine, UMaine Machias Board of Visitors, faculty, and students of the University of Maine community, please join me in welcoming our President, John Ferrer-Nimandi, to this important occasion as we listen to her State of the University address.
Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much, Eric, Dr. Wilmot, for the very kind and generous and thoughtful introduction. I'm delighted that you're here in Maine with us. It's a lot colder than Ghana, probably, but it's terrific to have you here, and I'm looking forward to getting to one of your research group meetings soon. At the University of Maine, we recognize that we are on Marsh Island and are in the homeland of the Penobscot Nation. We make this acknowledgement aware of continuing violations of water and territorial rights and encroachment upon sacred sites in the Penobscot homeland. Welcome to all of our distinguished visitors, to Board of Visitors members, to Board of Trustees members, to members of the University of Maine system leadership, to our outstanding faculty, staff, deans, and directors, and to members of the President's Cabinet. Let me express my special appreciation to Dr. Kimberly Whitehead, the President's Chief of Staff, who is helping us to reinstate some of these important academic traditions, including last fall's convocation and now this State of the University address. I'm also pleased to see many alumni and community members here, and to all at our regional campus in Machias, welcome, and thanks for tuning in. I want to take just a moment to affirm that our thoughts today are and have been with the University of Maine at Machias community following yesterday's disturbing and unsettling news from Washington County. During this difficult time, UMaine and UMM community members are here for each other, standing in solidarity and support. The safety and well-being of members of the Machias community are foremost in our hearts and minds. Our thoughts and prayers with all who have been affected by these tragedies. Students, you are the reason for our universities. Thank you for taking the time to join us in the auditorium or remotely, and for being interested in the state of your University of Maine. I'm glad that you are the embodiment of the university in 2020. Saturday marked the beginning of Black History Month, which has as its national theme, African Americans and the Vote. This year is the 150th anniversary of the 15th Amendment, which gave African American men the right to vote. We can all be proud that on February 1, Washington Monthly released an honor roll of colleges and universities nationwide that score high on their work to encourage students to vote. And I'm happy to tell you that UMaine is on that honor roll. Our UMaine You Vote initiative is working. I thank Lori Sedelko and so many others for their important efforts. Today I'm asking everybody in our community to reaffirm and redouble their commitment to and active promotion of the inclusive excellence that defines a successful university. Through Student Life, with Vice President Robert Dana's leadership, we are working with partners all across the campuses to define inclusive excellence. Led by our Director for Diversity and Inclusion, Anila Karunakar, the Center for Diversity and Inclusion and its organizations, the Multicultural Student Center, the Rainbow Resource Center, and the Intersectional Feminist Resource Center all are working to support students while bringing the critically important realities of inclusive excellence to our students, our faculty, and the staff. They join many other efforts happening in units and groups across the campuses and community. The strength and centrality of diversity and inclusion are a highest value for me. Effective today, Dr. Dana's title will be expanded to reflect that. Please acknowledge our Vice President for Student Life and Inclusive Excellence and Dean of Students, Robert Dana. Dr. Dana will join with me, Director Karunakar, the President's Cabinet, and many passionate and effective partners across the campuses to ensure that the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion are central to our thinking and central to who and what we are and to our actions as a university. To this end, I will soon charge a Commission on Inclusive Excellence to reflect on and make central the critical nature of this work and the many efforts occurring on campus. They will recommend how equity, all voices, and the importance of every person will be central to everything that we do. Inclusivity is a high value and a just approach to community life. We must commit to inclusive excellence not only as something to celebrate, not only as something that we value, but indeed as the core that defines the University of Maine. Higher ed is seen by many as slow, bureaucratic, overly focused on process, reluctant to change, and frankly, not very nimble. At least maybe you've heard that. If not, good. If not, that's good. But I kind of heard that at the national level. However, higher ed is society's primary institution for influencing the future. Krista McAuliffe, the teacher from New Hampshire who died in the tragic Challenger explosion in 1986, while pursuing her dream to go to space, said, "I touch the future, I teach." Universities are one of the few institutions in our society that are explicitly about the future. How amazing and energizing is it, that we in universities can absolutely rely year after year on the transformation of our institutions that comes when about 1/4 of our Maine constituents leave their mark at UMaine and move on, and are replaced by another brand new group, ready to spend time with us and forge their own pathways. To survive and thrive, we must be dynamic, ambitious, and future-oriented, while of course preserving and sustaining the most valued foundations. Universities function as change agents. That's why presidents often have change agendas, and I do. Our greatest collective accomplishment in the last academic year was the completion of the Strategic Vision and Values Initiative, our new strategic plan. The work of then Provost Jeff Hecker and the team that he led in 2018-19 was inclusive and excellent and brought in ideas from across the campus and beyond. They produced a clear, bold vision that is the frame for our future. And this year, under the leadership of Interim Provost Faye Gilbert and with Senior Associate Provost Jeff St. John, all of you are invited to fill in this frame by painting images of the actions that we will take to achieve the ambitious goals of the plan. Look at the plan's website. I could ask how many have looked, but that's never a good idea. But assuming you've had a look, you will see that there are goals, sub-goals, and specific objectives that came from the collective conversations across our campuses. And that's where you all come in. Everyone in this room, everyone watching from afar. The next level invites action plans, the implementation of the framework. to be populated not by the central administration, not by me, but by campus teams, groups, departments, centers, or others who come together around an action that would advance us toward a goal. And as we post these and track them and watch our progress, we'll be able to see the instantiation of our strategic vision and values plan. Our three strategic values, which you all should be learning pretty quickly now, are fostering learner success, discovering and innovating, and growing and advancing partnerships. And inclusive excellence is what will propel us ahead. Last year, I used the ideas of convergence, connection, and commitment in my inaugural speech. It wasn't just nice alliteration, although I think it was actually pretty good. Many months later, I am pleased to assure you that the state of the University of Maine and our regional campus is strong. That is because we model convergence, we value connections, and we demonstrate commitment. I would now like to offer a few highlights about where we are and where we are going in fostering learner success. This fall, we welcomed 10,089 undergraduates and 2,131 graduate students at UMaine and our regional campus at Machias. They hail from 50 states and 79 nations. 66% of our combined student body is from Maine. On the academic side, our students have access to about 115 undergraduate degrees and more than 100 master's or doctoral degrees. Combined, the campuses also offer about 30 certificates, and that number is growing. In student life, we have nearly 200 active student and Greek organizations. At UMaine, we've been able to provide 86% of degree-seeking undergraduate students with grant or scholarship support. For first-time full-time students, that percentage is 99%. At the graduate level, 87% of degree-seeking full-time graduate students are supported by scholarships, fellowships, or assistantships. We are a welcoming, supportive university with a wide range of high-quality opportunities. Our enrollment management professionals are making extraordinary efforts continuously to bring us entering classes of diverse students who have the very best promise of thriving at UMaine and UMM. We are accelerating our efforts to engage all of you in being a part of the extended team to bring students to UMaine and to help them succeed here. Every single one of you has a part that you can play. Our Inclusive Excellence Core is our best asset. In terms of the state of the university and our future, there are two key indicators that we all must watch that relate to fostering learner success. The first is student credit hours, SCHs. Someone editing this crossed that out and said, just say student credit hours every time. But we talk about it all the time, so we can learn that acronym. The total number of credits for which the student body enrolls in a given semester. And in this fiscal year and for the next, we face challenges. Our SCHs are flattening, and our projections continue that trend. So we need to come together. We need to act convergently for the future of our university and to enable more students to have the chance to succeed here. We all need to be enrollment ambassadors and to tell the story of the great experiences and opportunities at UMaine and at our regional campus. Here are these stories. Our students are learning through connections on ice fields in Alaska in a summer field course and in the rocky intertidal zone of Maine's coast in Semester by the Sea. They are researching media spots for the state bicentennial and helping to preserve Maine's past in archaeology field school and in the Maine Shell Middens Project. They are fast-tracked to Tufts Medical School in the Maine Track Early Assurance Program. They are working with policy leaders in Augusta and on Capitol Hill and collaborating on NASA projects. They are taking advantage of Bloomberg terminals and other cutting-edge technologies in labs ranging from Teach Live and VEMI to Wheatland Geospatial. UMaine and UMM students plug into internships, fellowships, co-ops, and a wide range of opportunities for community engagement and service learning. And all UMaine and UMM experiential learning is led by world-class faculty committed to mentoring and actively engaging students in research and scholarship. Part of building up our SCH, you've got that, SCH, student credit hours, is offering programs that are relevant to our iGen students as well as our returning professionals and to the state of Maine and its people. Programs that offer our learners pathways toward meaningful employment. or as our colleague President Clayton Spencer at Bates College would say, to purposeful work. Our Maine MBA was ranked just last month as a top 50 online program by U.S. News and World Report. That's a very big deal. The MBA team, through the Portland-based UMaine Graduate and Professional Center, is developing new concentrations in sustainability, healthcare management, and engineering management in direct response to what we are hearing from business leaders in Maine about their needs. I congratulate Dean Michael Weber and all of his colleagues for demonstrating how to be nimble and how to respond to what our state is asking for. This is good for learners, good for Maine, and frankly good for our bottom line. We are seeing large increases in enrollment in the MBA. Thanks to all who are involved, and I look forward to seeing more of this. We are responsive to community needs and opportunities across our campuses. In partnership with Northern Light Eastern Maine Medical Center, UMaine is launching a new graduate certificate program, the Maine Arts and Humanities in Medicine program. This will bring together medical professionals and graduate students to focus on the intersection of arts, humanities, and medicine. This is convergence. We are also working to find the best ways to respond to the need for nursing professionals in Washington County. We have identified several very promising and viable pathways to implementing nursing at UMM and will soon announce a nursing summit to be held in Machias. At the end of March, we will break ground, I guess whether it has thawed or not, apparently, for the new E. James and Eileen P. Furland Engineering Education and Design Center. That is a big deal, too. The first new building on the Orono campus since the Emera Astronomy Center in 2014. Did you know that 28% of our buildings on campus are more than 50 years old? With state-of-the-art learning and connecting spaces, the new building, the Engineering Education and Design Center, will embody our commitment to preparing engineers for the future who can collaborate, who can, as Dean Humphrey says, solve wicked problems, and create the new tools and techniques for tomorrow. The Engineering Education and Design Center is all about fostering learner success. Retention, that is, how many students return to the university after their first year and after their second year, is the second key indicator I wish to highlight. Students who come to our university are here to embark on a journey that not only shapes their future, but shapes us as a university. A university is the collection of the people who are with us at any moment. Thus, our commitment to our students must define all that we do. The UMaine average retention rate from the first to second year over the past 3 years is 76%. Put differently, we lose about a fourth of our students to attrition after their first to second year, from the first to second year. For UMM, the average is about 56%. Nationally, for universities in the UMaine and UMM peer groups, the rates are about 81% and 64% respectively. The retention rate does vary by college and by program and by other factors, but we must increase it. We owe that to our students. We must foster their success. This past fall, we announced the First-Year Student Success Initiative, the culmination of efforts last year involving more than 1,000 faculty, staff, and students to generate actions to help all our students find their pathways to success. And part of that means doing all we can to help those students return. You can find the details under Action 1.1.1.1 in the Strategic Vision and Values website. The University of Maine system, under the leadership of our new Chancellor Dan Malloy, is finding tools to help us. For example, the system changed the gap limit that had been in place for when students with outstanding balances can register. Now, instead of being blocked from registration with an outstanding balance of only $100, the new limit is $1,000. And UMaine and UMM have implemented that change. We hope that helps our students stay. In December 2019, Chancellor Malloy put in place a Make the Grade initiative to help fall 2019 first-year students who had failed one course by giving them the opportunity to retake the course at no tuition. And UMaine and UMM have implemented that option. We have upward of 70 students taking us up on that right now. Our UMaine data show that in the past, only about 59% of first-year, first-time students who receive an F in their first semester return for the second year. We are watching the Make the Grade initiative very closely to see if it helps make a difference. You know, I talked recently with some of the students who are participating in this redo opportunity, and they told me that part of their challenge in the first semester was making good use of the help that was available to them, the tutoring, the office hours, the problem sessions that were available in their courses. I am confident that in their second run through those courses, these students will use that help, and I look forward to seeing them as they make their own way toward graduation. Research tells us that one of the major reasons that students leave a university is a poor experience in their first year or gateway courses. We are looking at data now for courses that have made transformations in instruction or curriculum and whose D, F, W, and L rates are decreasing as a result. If you are interested in this, come to the Academic Affairs Faculty Forum on Best UMaine Practices in Reaching and Retaining Students next Thursday, February 13th at 3 p.m. in Wells. I want to commend our Center for Innovation in Teaching and Learning, led by Dr. Peter Schilling, for its vital role in fostering learners' success. CEDL, I'm told that's how we say it here, CEDL, the Center for Innovation in Teaching and Learning, supports faculty members and graduate students who wish to learn about, experiment with, adopt, and assess new approaches to teaching and learning. So far this academic year, 221 faculty have already attended CEDL professional development workshops, and 158 faculty have worked with CEDL instructional designers on 233 courses. And I'm not sure if you can add or multiply all those numbers together or what, but that's a lot of reach, a lot of focus on helping our faculty develop ways to foster learner success. Now, a little over halfway through the academic year, faculty have already worked with CEDL to create 1,058 videos for their online and face-to-face courses. Engagement is key to retention. In keeping with my Fostering Learner Success Through Teaching and Learning theme this year, we are working to give shape to the idea of what I'm calling research learning for all of our undergraduates. By that I mean experiential or problem-based learning that engages the learner in an authentic experience of research, scholarship, or creative production. One stellar example of this is the work done by Professors Sally Malloy and Melissa McGinnis in Phage Genomics, a course offered to first-year honors college students. The students collect and culture novel bacteriophages or viruses. They isolate DNA from the phage and sequence its genome. They even make videos to promote their phages. Thank you to students Lauren Cusson and Libby Curry for sharing your video with visitors from the legislature this fall. I would vote for your phage if I had occasion to. Students in Professor Bernie Vinzani's Book Arts Studio at UMaine Machias gain experiences in creating beautiful books. And at Down East Institute, Brian Beal and his UMM students are helping the Maine clam fisheries figure out how to be as productive as they possibly can be. Our students engage in authentic scholarly and creative arts experiences in courses, in the field, in labs, in teaching, in art studios and music performances, in capstone courses, in traditional undergraduate research experiences, in internships, and in co-ops. Our deans are now doing an inventory of what is already in place in this arena, and it is a considerable list. The literature is clear that the connections that come from something like research learning are key for retention and for learning. I would like to be able to announce, notice my wording there, I'm not actually announcing, like to be able to announce that all incoming UMaine and UMaine Machias students in the fall of 2021 will have access to a high-quality research learning experience in their first year. We all must work together to make this happen, and I hope that it can. It's about fostering learner success. It's about inclusive excellence. We also need to bend the curve, as they say, on our retention numbers rapidly for the sake of our students. All of us need to figure out what we can do as individuals to help and do our part. For my part, I will be visiting sections of Math 122 this semester in our active learning classroom in Estabrook. I actually believe I successfully, and I think anonymously, helped a student draw a vector describing a burning candle scenario on his graph paper last week. Thank you to mathematics faculty Natasha Spear, Tim Baster, and Todd Zoroya, and to the Math 122 students for welcoming me back to the mathematics classroom. Historically, the UMaine four-year graduation rate has ranged from 33% to 40%. The most recent four-year graduation rate, which includes the first group of students to receive 4 years of messaging from our Think 30 campaign, is at 41%. The 4-year rates for our peer institutions hover around 40%. Completed first-year applications for fall 2020 for UMaine and UMaine Machias combined are up 4%, indicating that we are on track to bring in more than 2,260 incoming first-year students. But bigger enrollments and improved retention are only part of the story, and the ongoing investments we must and should make in our people, our human capital, through salary increases, student financial aid, and other supports are part of the equation. We are at the early stages of planning the fiscal 2021 budget, and I must be clear with you that balancing everything will be a challenge. Our first campus budget forum laid out the situation in December, where we told the campus at that time that UMaine faced a gap in our budget work of about $15 million. We are continuing to work on realignments, including reductions and decisions not to fill some lines that will come vacant this year to address this. We are collaborating, the central administration, the deans and directors, and the Senate and Assembly leaders going forward to establish strategic priorities for investment and also potential areas of disinvestment for the future as we look at this in a long-term way. Our second strategic value, I know there are only 3, so bear with me. Our second strategic value is discovering and creating. The University of Maine is a land, sea, and space grant university, the public university system flagship, and the state's only public research university. As a land-grant university, our mission has a special historic context. As I said at my inauguration a little less than a year ago, quote, "We work with the people, businesses, and government of the state of Maine to advance our well-being together. I think about these responsibilities every day and am so proud of how well our university does at enacting them." We were founded in 1865 as the Maine State College of Agriculture and Mechanic Arts. We have come a very long way in 155 years in the mission of being in synergistic relationships with the state and beyond, in engaging in fundamental research, applied and use-inspired research, experimental development, and commercialization. The University of Maine has a thriving research and development enterprise. In just 1 year, from fiscal 18 to 19, our research expenditures, meaning the dollars coming in from external and internal sources that our researchers spend on research, rose by 6% to $137 million. That's a big deal. This is a 74% increase in total research expenditures over 2016. It means we are producing more research as a faculty. We involve hundreds of students in the research labs and in the field, and our research enterprise creates jobs for Maine. With colleagues from across the system, I led the development of a 5-year strategic plan for research and development for the University of Maine system that was delivered to the Board of Trustees last spring. UMaine then took the lead, together with our colleagues at the University of Southern Maine and the other institutions, in implementing one of the report's major recommendations. We called for proposals on the critical statewide and interdisciplinary or convergent grand challenge of rural health and well-being. The research to be undertaken by the convergence teams who wrote the 3 winning proposals will be groundbreaking for Maine. The projects are University of Maine System Injury Prevention Collaborative, led by Marcella Sorg from UMaine. The second, expanding telehealth training and use to support developmental and emotional needs of children in rural Maine schools, led by Kimberly Fox from USM. And UMaine Medicine, addressing renal disease, metabolic disorders, and infectious diseases among isolated populations in rural Maine, led by Ben King, UMaine. The projects involve faculty from across UMaine, the University of Southern Maine, University of Maine at Presque Isle, and UMaine Augusta. Collaborating institutions include the Maine CDC, Jackson Laboratories, and others. This is an outstanding demonstration of convergence and commitment to solving challenges in Maine through research that will be widely inclusive. I want to highlight just a few of our outstanding successes in research, scholarship, and creative activity in the past year. We received not one, but 2 $20 million external awards. A National Science Foundation EPSCoR grant to launch the 5-year Maine Environmental DNA initiative, and a Department of Energy grant to advance 3D printing with wood products to create a new market for Maine forest products. The visual and performing arts programs in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences in Orono enhance the cultural health of the community. In the past academic year on campus, there were close to 100 art exhibits, theater and dance performances, concerts, and recitals. Plus, there were pep band performances at 50 hockey and basketball games, and 38 music and theater performances on tour, meaning off campus in Maine, all for free. 6 Climate Change Institute explorers participated in the most comprehensive single scientific expedition ever on Mount Everest, directed by Professor Palmaevsky. 3 Guinness World Records were set for the world's largest prototype polymer 3D printer, the largest solid 3D printed object, and the largest 3D printed boat. You've heard about the boat, yes? Okay. Right here in Orono at the Advanced Structures and Composites Center under the leadership of Dr. Habib Dagher. Scholars in the humanities and social sciences are framing and shaping some of the major issues of our day through their scholarly work and their writing. Sociologist Amy Blackstone, communications professor Judith Rosenbaum, and philosopher Doug Allen all published books in the past year. A protein-lipid connection was discovered by physicist Sam Hess that could lead to new flu-fighting therapies. Just last week, we heard the good news that Professor Andre Khalil's computational approach for early detection of breast cancer has been patented. And finally, a small collection of the poems of the letters of Maine native Edna St. Vincent Millay is now available in digital commons at UMaine. The letters, donated by her friend Gladys Niles of Bangor, emphasize her excitement as she began to succeed as a published poet. I want to announce today that UMaine is embarking on the process to achieve R1 status in the coming years. This is the coveted Carnegie designation as a very high research activity doctoral institution. Currently, we are R2. We have outstanding researchers and great doctoral programs and want to be sure that our research enterprise is strategic, is suitably broad for a university of our type, and has the support it needs to sustain and grow to be recognized at this higher level. The processes of aiming for R1 status alone will strengthen what we do. Vice President for Research and Dean of the Graduate School, Dr. Koti Vararamian, will lead this effort, reporting directly to the President. Growing and advocating partnerships is our third strategic value. As the flagship and land grant, the University of Maine is a statewide asset, and I am interested in making sure that we are clear about that in our public messaging. Our deans undertook an important project this fall to document the number of partnerships that we have as a university across the state. They came up with more than 2,700 in every county. These partnerships are with schools, businesses, healthcare organizations, and nonprofits. In the greater Portland area alone, we count more than 300 such partnerships, including several with our sister system campus, the University of Southern Maine. There are more than 70 University of Maine-related faculty and staff based in that area, spanning Cooperative Extension Cumberland County and Falmouth, the Gulf of Maine Research Institute, the University of Maine Foundation, and Black Bear Athletics. This also includes our faculty research partners in the Graduate School of Biomedical Science and Engineering at the University of New England, the Maine Medical Center Research Institute, and more. Many of you have noted and asked about last week's announcement of the David Rue Ideals Institute at Northeastern University to be based in Portland. I believe that the infusion of academic innovation that Northeastern University brings, together with the potential of new economic development, will be good for Maine. Soon, a team of us will visit Northeastern's Burlington facilities to continue conversations that we have been in for several weeks now about how we can best forge faculty and programmatic partnerships with Northeastern. We have much to learn and also much to bring to the table, and I'm looking forward to a new level of partnership growing there. The state of Maine is a vital partner with us, and UMaine and UMM deliver enormous value to the state. We were integral to the development of the state's new 10-year Strategic Economic Development Plan. So too were the regional economic analyses provided by UMaine economics alumna Angela Hallowell and her advisor, Professor Andrew Crawley. More than a dozen of our faculty and staff are part of the Governor's Climate Council, and I am hearing from state leaders that their contributions and leadership are outstanding and are shaping the plan in key ways. Our partnerships with the state alone range from advising on K-12 curriculum standards, to areas around disabilities and access, to fisheries policy, to aquaculture advances, and to innovation. It's impressive to see all that we do. This past fall, the University of Maine at Machias and the Down East Salmon Federation signed a memorandum of understanding to formalize our growing partnership in the vital work of restoring salmon populations in rivers in Down East Maine. I watched students, volunteers, and staff at the Salmon Federation carefully doing fin clipping of juvenile wild Atlantic salmon as part of the effort to study the restoration of this iconic fish in Maine. It was such a vivid image for me of the connections our universities have with our state. The flagship is a central part of the University of Maine system, comprising almost half of the total UMS budget. I, along with many UMaine leaders, faculty, and students, are centrally involved in the planning for unified accreditation that was approved by the UMS Board of Trustees last week. I believe this will help to strengthen UMaine partnerships and will bring our strongest and best practices to wider scale. The work will be challenging and ongoing. You know, we have supporters and advocates everywhere. The University of Maine Foundation has brought in donations amounting to more than 90% of our $200 million target in the Vision for Tomorrow capital campaign. And I want to thank Dr. Jeff Mills for all of the great work he does there at the foundation. This year alone, through the scholarships coming in from the foundation, we provided more than $4 million in scholarship support to UMaine students. We have a board of visitors, that's BOV, comprising people who commit to providing their time, their experience, and their support to bring us ideas, to advocate for us, to tell us when we are moving off course, and to ask us the hard questions that require us always to come back to our values and mission. One of our BOV members, Owen McCarthy, a native of Patten, Maine, and UMaine class of 2010, is co-founder and president of MedRhythms, a digital medicine company combining sensors, machine learning, and algorithms to help people recover from neurological injury or disease. In a true convergence example, Owen and his collaborators, whose backgrounds include engineering, music, AI, medicine, and business, are working for solutions. But maybe Owen is most recently famous for appearing in a Super Bowl ad that perhaps many of you saw last weekend. UMaine's partners and networks are deep, wide, and vibrant. The UMaine Alumni Association, and I see that John Diamond is here today, stays in touch with our more than 109,000 alumni base worldwide and helps keep all of us connected to the college of our hearts always. Part of that connection is looking to our alums for the kind of wisdom and perspective that is special because it comes from people with deep and strong commitment to and love for this university. For example, Brown University's Vice President for Institutional Equity and Diversity, Shantae Delalue, a double alumna from the class of 2000 and a 2003 grad, is featured now on the Alumni Association webpage. She said, speaking of her work at Brown, quote, "We're trying to shift the conversation to say you can't have excellence and innovation without representation and structural change," she says. Historically, higher education was not created for certain individuals, and we need to ensure that the landscape changes in a way that opens access and cultivates supportive environments for individuals from underrepresented groups. Dr. Delalue's words will guide us in our own continuing pathway toward inclusive excellence. And I'm very pleased to announce that Dr. Delalue will be the speaker at this year's UMaine graduate commencement. In conclusion, then, let me quote from Governor Janet Mills' State of the State address, delivered in Augusta on January 21st. She said, in speaking of the history of the state of Maine and its struggles and challenges in its 200 years as a state, that, quote, "Through it all, we have been lifted up by the courage, conviction, and resilience that comes from loving a place and its people. That resilience defines our history. That resilience will define our future." There is much to celebrate here, and I've only been able to highlight a fraction of the positive stories. We have challenges, and we are taking them on with characteristic Maine ingenuity, persistence, and resilience. At the University of Maine and the University of Maine at Machias, there is so very much to be proud of. Through our students, our faculty, and our extended communities, our institutions are making their mark in Orono, in Machias, in Maine, in the nation, and in the world. Thank you very much.
Well, this brings us to the question and answer period. My name is David Townsend. I'm president of the Faculty Senate, and I'll be taking your questions. We also have UMaine Machias online, so we'll be entertaining questions from them as well. So, who wants to go first? You've heard a lot. We've covered a lot of ground here. Certainly you have some questions for clarification or just to clear things up, and you want to make a point. Oh, come on.
Wait time, Dave.
Okay, well, I have some notes here. Let me see what I can find. I'm sorry, I can't see. So you'll have to speak up if you have a question.
Thank you for the address, and thank you for taking the time to get questions from us. I'm wondering how you can reconcile both the budget we currently have and the fact that we're not feeling position with the idea of moving on to do more research and providing more incentives for our faculty to do research.
Can the people online hear the question? I'm assuming so. That was in the mic. Yeah, I'm just giving myself time to think about that, actually. It's a very thoughtful and good question. There's not a kind of a quick and easy answer to this. I wish I had one. We have to do both. Right? We have to figure out how to sustain this university and its quality given the context of changing demographics in Maine and the ways in which our student body is evolving over time. At the same time, a university must be forward-looking, as I've said. We must be able to think about new directions, new ideas. And I think with that comes the very difficult work of looking at what we do and deciding whether all of it can continue as we move into the new directions and new ideas. But I assure you that any process for that must be strategic, must be fully inclusive, must engage all of the very smart people who populate universities in trying to figure out the answers. So it will be a much more visible focus of our work together and our conversations going forward, but I do not want us to stop thinking about where the future is and where we need to go. Not easy, but we have to work on it together.
We have a question from Machias.
What additional partnership opportunities with UMaine are being explored for students at UMaine Machias, such as Outward Bound, outdoor opportunities, honors pathways, study abroad?
Okay, so the question, I'm not sure, could you all hear pretty well? Okay, could you please read it again more loudly? Thank you. This is Josette McMillan, who's our new, McWilliams, who's our new executive assistant in my office.
What opportunities with UMaine are being explored for students at UMaine Machias, such as Outward Bound, outdoor opportunities, honors pathways, and study abroad?
Great, so a wonderful question. As you all know, we are really only in about our third year of the implementation of what was originally called the primary partnership, which brings the University of Maine at Machias into the University of Maine as a regional campus. And we are defining that very carefully and very thoughtfully with a lot of collaboration between people at both universities. This past summer, we launched a new task force that would look at the academic side of the partnership. And some of the examples listed here are part of that discussion. Others, thinking about Outward Bound and more, I think are just natural areas for us to come together and look at how we use what we have here at UMaine, and by the way, how we look at great advantages at Machias, and then just figure out together how we make those programs available to all of our students, particularly the UMaine at Machias students who might have interest in some of the established programs here in Orono, but also to work in both directions. Machias is a coastal university. It is beautiful. I had a statistic someplace about how many beaches there are within the range of Machias, and it's a lot, with tremendous opportunity for marine science research and for engagement with the coastal community on many issues. So I believe we have to be very intentional about how to make those partnerships go from being ideas into actual implementation, and we have groups working on that now. If you have interest in that, I urge you to be in touch with Dan Qualls, the head of campus at Machias, or with Faye Gilbert, the provost here at UMaine, and they can help you be a part of those conversations actively.
In the back of the room.
Probably be good to ask people to identify themselves as they ask a question.
Hi there, Amy Blackstone. Thanks so much for the chance to ask a few questions. I really appreciated what you said about the goal of having every first-year student have a research experience, and I wonder if you have particular models in mind or examples that you can point to for those of us in departments that aspire to that ourselves.
Well, I think one of the first things we need to do is bring together people across the campus, both who are doing this, and so I did mention the work in the phage biology area. That's a very concrete kind of field-based data collection and then data analytics approach. But I know we have more going on. I hear about capstone courses and the kinds of projects that students are engaged with. I hear about internships that faculty are helping to arrange with nonprofit organizations and community partners. So one thing I think we need to do, Amy, is to bring everybody together who has tried some of this and who's thinking about ideas for how to do it, and just share best practices to start. Give definition to what this means, because it needs to be broad. In my view, it needs to include, some are calling it experiential learning. My meaning is a little bit more precise than that, because it has this element of creation of something new or engagement in methodology that is typical of scholarly work in a field or in research. So the answer is, I think we need to find the examples, make them public, be willing to scrutinize them a bit, and look at how we can draw from them to broaden this out. But if you have interest, and you obviously do because you've asked, that puts you already on one of the notes that I've made about this. So stay tuned for more.
Also in the back of the room, I think it's John.
I can't tell.
President Farini-Mundy, thank you for your land acknowledgement of the Penobscot Nation.
Can you identify yourself, please?
John Diefenbacher-Kroll. Your vision of inclusive excellence, I don't think something could stand more in opposition to that than having an academic building named after Clarence Little and his role in the American eugenics movement. I just can't see anything that's more in it. Do you envision some sort of process that we can address that on our campus?
John, yes, thank you, I do. This came up in discussions last year, and what we have decided to do, and in fact we have the memo drafted and are just looking for the last few additions to that. We will be announcing a task force to look at that question. So thank you for bringing it up today.
We have a hand back here.
Hi, Susan Gardner, Rising Tide Center. Thank you so much, President, for centering inclusive excellence. I really do appreciate that, and as someone who's worked with a lot of colleagues on doing that work also on campus over the last 12 plus years, I appreciate that even more. And I've done a lot of that work related to faculty and academic affairs. So related to that, I'm interested in the naming of Dr. Dana with that vice president position related to inclusive excellence connected to student life rather than a position that might oversee the whole campus community, and why that positioning. And I guess a related question, to be blunt, through no fault of his own, Dr. Dana is a white man. And I think that's an interesting and perhaps a bold choice, knowing that there are identity politics connected with any kind of position such as that. And in particular, our students of color are going to be interested in that position choice. And I'm just wondering if you could speak to that.
Of course, thank you, Susan. You won't be surprised, probably, well, you might be, to hear that I have thought about these issues that you've raised and talked with folks about them. You know, I think what's most important about this is the unequivocal commitment to inclusive excellence as a campus, campus-wide. There are many different models for how campuses and universities choose to give significance to that commitment through various types of positions, through various kinds of coalitions. Last year I asked Vice President Dana to take a look at the full array of diversity and equity related activity on campus. And it's amazing. It spans the entire campus. Certainly a large concentration happens within student life, but by no means all. And the Rising Tide Center, which is of course a place where you have made enormous contribution, is central in all of that. So the question then comes, how do we clearly make this a campuses-wide matter of focus? And what that to me means is that it's not some sort of it's a kind of a convening and shaping the dialogue, opening up the dialogue role that is not an atypical role for a vice president. All of our vice presidents have a campus-wide responsibility for their focus, and so at this time I made the announcement that Dean Dana will take on this role, but this will be an activity of inclusive excellence. It can't succeed if it is not. So all of you can expect opportunities to be part of this discussion, and by the way, to have an expectation coming from me that this is something we all commit to. I look forward to an ongoing dialogue around this.
Machias, are you still with us? No questions from Machias. Dean Cervello.
I wonder if you could take this opportunity just to speak a little bit more about the Grand Challenge initiative, I guess I'll call it, you have going on. Timelines, what you envision, how do challenges change, at least the ones we choose to try to help with, and everything about this in the larger scheme of things.
Sure. Thank you, Dean Cervello. This the strategic plan, the R&D plan that we put forward last year was it spoke very strongly about the idea of grand challenges as something that would be suitable for our university in light of the fact that so many other universities around the country have grabbed onto these kinds of ideas because they bring people together. They focus on not only interdisciplinarity, but convergence, which is a little bit different from interdisciplinarity. And so we put it forward as a recommendation in the strategic R&D plan. And then I was very, very pleased when the team here on campus, Cody Vararamian, Jake Ward, and Jason Sharland, came to me and said, it's time, let's do this now. Let's do this with the Research Reinvestment Fund, with a portion of those dollars that are managed by this team and a few others around the system. And my reaction, I'll have to say, was, well, we might need, I was being that non-nimble, slow, well, we might need more time, and can we really figure this out, and I'm not sure, and what's the time, your questions, kind of like, what's the timeline, and how will we work this, and will we have a new one? And they pushed politely and said, let's just do this. We don't necessarily know all these details. We're thrilled with the number of proposals that came in. I believe it was about 30 or so that came from across the system. They are convergent in that the ideas are shaped by, framed by the interdisciplinary presence of folks across the team. So there was one plan that I think kind of had us aiming toward just selecting one, and Cody can help me later with the details here. And then we had an ideas lab, which is the sort of British sandbox tradition, right, of bringing together everybody and hoping that when you put them together in a room with some facilitation, maybe there is convergence and people come together and it gets boiled down. It didn't boil down to one. It boiled down to 3. So that was the first little detour, but the team kept saying, it'll be fine, we'll just, let's go with this. So at this point, I believe we will be able soon to announce concretely what happens next. I don't know the answers to the questions of will there be a new one. This one seems like a pretty big and rich idea, and we have 27 proposals that were solid that we also need to think about going forward. But again, I think we need to host conversation about how to do this and then get the resources moving so that these teams can get started. The ideas are phenomenal. The teams presented posters to the board last week, and hopefully there's a way we can make those available online so that you can start to learn about the innovation going on in these ideas.
Nothing? Well, I have a few.
It's time for the reception, Dave. Just kidding.
Conspicuous by its absence, it has been any discussion of a unified accreditation. And last week ago, Monday, the BOT approved the plan to move ahead toward unified accreditation. There's been a lot of talk about it. There are some concerns. How does that plan moving forward affect the SVB strategic plan, vision, and values document that we've already have in place? Any changes, any roadblocks set up by it?
So it's a great question. I want to thank Dave for his leadership in pushing us hard as we think about this unified accreditation work, and he will be doing that going forward. This is a discussion that you all know has been going on for many years under different names. The Chancellor and his staff have put together an outstanding documentation, really in a website, of everything about unified accreditation back when it was being considered by the system decades ago, on to the idea of one university, which has given way to this concept of unified accreditation. And as Dave said, the board did endorse the forward movement of unified accreditation at their meeting last week. I have been very active with the other presidents in every stage of this, including the determination of guiding principles for unified accreditation, which you haven't, if you've not looked at those, some of you may not have seen them, please take a look, because that is being really held centrally as the key to how we do this going forward. Chancellor Malloy has visited 46, Rowena, is it 46? Or he's made 46 visits to our campuses across the system to hear from faculty, staff, students, campus governance leaders, and he's coming again to the University of Maine tomorrow. So there are more opportunities to discuss this. I look at it as an important activity for the University of Maine and for the University of Maine system. We've talked a bit about our demographics. Those of you who look system-wide know that our sister universities in some parts of the state are facing these demographics with challenges that are even more substantial than ours. University of Maine has robust, strong academic programs and processes in place. Our own accreditation has been solid. And so when we think about this process of moving to a statewide way of working together, I think of unified accreditation as a tool. It will give us a framework that we can use to do some things that we are already doing, talk about all the number of partnerships that we have and that we may wish to do better going forward, but really its effect and its impact will be based on how well we make use of the tool. The next steps will be will take a lot of time and a lot of input. They include the development of a what's called a substantive change request to our commissioning organization, the New England Commission on Higher Education, NECHI. We're in the process just now of putting that work in place. That will be, again, transparent, will include a lot of opportunity for all of you to weigh in. So we will work on it as we go, using the principles and looking at it as a chance for UMaine's strongest processes and procedures to scale, and UMaine Machias to learn from our colleagues and look for new opportunities to partner through the process. But no promise that this will be easy. I am very pleased that the Chancellor has taken this to be such an inclusive activity and is looking to hear from all of us all the way through.
Excellent. One question down.
Also, Suzanne Berry from College of Education and Human Development. So I want to go back to this idea of pushing for being an R1, and I'm more than excited that this idea is still here, and I really want to see that happen. So one of the questions that I have, if you look around the nation for the R1 institutions, they're really strong in pushing about the alignment of research, teaching, and service.
Right.
They're supporting faculty to have this alignment to some degree. And what I was wondering if, having this alignment can be more of a guideline for our institution as well, something more official in a promotion tenure document perhaps, or somewhere that's more appropriate. Because to me, I feel like if that happens, that will create more equity among faculty and also efficiency.
That's great. I think you've just signed up for that committee too. As I tried to emphasize, we are a very, very solid research and scholarship oriented institution. And so moving toward this designation, taking on what it will mean to get there, is really as much a part of what I'm hoping happens as actually we will get there, I hope, but we need to work at that in a deliberate way. So your point is quite interesting, this notion about your sense that it requires a kind of integration across our three-part mission. I think I would like to say to that one of the ideas that I'm trying to promote, this notion of research learning, this notion of bringing our research into our classrooms well beyond the great work that we already do, but thoroughly and expansively across the entire operation, that's a piece of that integration that I think could be something distinctive for the University of Maine. It would engage graduate students, it might well attract graduate students. Dr. Vararamian has done a very nice analysis, and we'll begin to share that as we launch into this, about exactly where we need to strengthen things in order to do well for this project. But I think you've picked one for sure. And then the connection of service to all that we do also can be very much amplified. If we think about research, we think about development work, we think about places across the state where we are working with local communities and with industry to make a difference. That's really our research integrating with our service. So then it's a matter of how do we get all three together. But great point.
And I have 3 or 4 questions, but I'll only ask one. You did mention that we need to increase our retention rates from first to second year students, and that we are facing some enrollment issues, that they were down on out-of-state students. But in-state applications a year ago were up, and enrollments were up. And you just mentioned this year, to this point, applications are up 4%. What are we doing to increase the yield on those applications? And we also heard you speak to, I think you said that student life is extremely important in retaining students here on campus, such as athletics and performing arts and other activities, intramurals and clubs and so forth. And how does that fit into looming budget cuts, the need to make the campus more attractive, recruiting more students, meaning offering perhaps more scholarships? It's a big puzzle. And in 10 words or less, how do you do that?
So wait a minute. He said, I've got 3 or 4 questions, but I'll only ask one. You know, did you just count all the question marks in that same? Anyway, thank you, Dave, for the question. You know, it would be nice if there were some simple answer to all of this. There isn't. We absolutely have to do all that we can to convert these applicants who are admitted into students who want to come, and we need to do that through, I think, the very strong efforts already underway in enrollment management, as well as even more. Can I tell an example that you once gave? So Dave told me that years ago, he was concerned that not enough students, if I get this a little wrong, you can just ignore that, students from his high school in Westbrook, where he was a student, a high school student, weren't coming to UMaine in the numbers that he wanted them to, that he was hoping to see them, so he volunteered himself to that high school to teach some science. I think it wasn't all science, maybe physics wasn't on the list, but something was, the biologies. Anyway, they took him up on it, as I understand it. This idea of all of us, in one way or another, reaching out to high schools that we know, we're looking for ways to perhaps formalize that, but really key is helping students who have been admitted understand that the great potential here, the great opportunities here are available to them. And we have to have a way to kind of do that collectively. That will help. You also mentioned many other things that are crucial to retention: athletics, the cultural opportunities on the campus, even the way the campus looks, so many dimensions of student life. All of that has to be a priority for us at the same time. And yes, we've got budget challenges, but we've also got to identify areas where we'll spend, where we will prioritize, where we will work with our foundation and our alumni to bring those needs to their attention and to hope that we can step up their interest in helping our campus in a variety of ways. So it would be nice if there were a tidy answer, but there isn't really. We just have to work at it.
So the President also asked me to make some closing remarks. I think my last question was that, but we are facing a lot of challenges here at the University of Maine with unified accreditation. It may present opportunities to meet some of those challenges, and we certainly have heard from the President a lot of energy, ideas, and initiatives, and already a lot of success stories. So thank you, President Farini-Mundy.
Thank you. We have a reception. we invite you to a reception, I guess, out in the foyer here. Okay? See you shortly.